Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to my channel. I've just filmed this makeup look and did a bit of a Q&A. So I thought I'd quickly do an introduction because when I started filming I was like, oh, okay, let's get started. First time doing my makeup on camera. First of all, there's a bunch of marking in the background. I apologise for that. It is what it is. I'm in NQT, you know, that's just the way my room is at the moment. Secondly, I'm balancing my tripod on my bed so I can get natural lighting. So I have realised that my footage is probably going to be slightly shaky and I'm really sorry about that. I'll try and fix it in editing, but you know, I'm still new to this whole thing. And thirdly, this is a really long video, so I suggest getting a cup of tea. Okay, let's do this. I have a great big bag of makeup here that I'm going to be using. I've already moisturised with my Ember Release. This is the best moisturiser, hands down. I always wear it when I am wearing makeup. I've already put foundation on the perimeters of my face so I could just do my hijab. The foundation that I'm going to be using is a Wet n Wild Photo Focus foundation in the shade Golden Beige. The first question is from Aisha Begum and she says, my question is, what did you study at uni? I'm just gonna pop my foundation on and then I will...
This will take a bit of practice, guys. I was being all confident, like, should I do a chit-chat, get ready with me, Q&A style? But it's going to take me a while to just talk and put makeup on.
So I studied developmental and educational psychology at university and I absolutely loved it. It was the best course for me. I don't actually think I would have enjoyed studying pure psychology because the difference between Dev and Ed and normal psychology is it had a much more stronger focus on education and child development as well, which I really enjoyed. And our placements were also to do with children and different like sort of learning institutions. So I did one of my placements in a nursery, which was just really fun. It was really interesting as well, and it gave me an insight on if I could ever work in a nursery. Spoiler alert, I couldn't. The only thing I didn't love about my course was the statistics element, but it's psychology, there's going to be statistics and you can't really shy away from that. Her second question is, did you always want to be a teacher and what inspired you to become a teacher? I realised when I was in year 5 that I wanted to be a teacher because my year 5 teacher was so fantastic. She was so supportive and so kind. So basically, when I was in year 5, that's when I actually first started wearing the hijab. I only really wore it to school. I didn't wear it outside of school that often because to me it was like, oh, this is my practice. Like I'm practicing wearing it in school because then when I'm an adult I'll wear it all the time. And I was not the only hijabi, I think I was the second hijabi in the whole year group, and I was really young as well, to be honest, to be wearing a hijab. And my teacher was so supportive and so kind about it, and she was, you know, she wasn't a Muslim, but she was just so lovely about it, and I think she really helped me to feel confident in wearing my hijab, which for a non-Muslim person to do, I mean, that's just amazing, I think. So she really gave me a lot of confidence and was just really kind and encouraging. And I would say that's who inspired me to be a teacher, but also both my grandmothers were teachers back in the day and they both were head teachers as well. I didn't always want to be a teacher though. I think my first like thing that I wanted to be, and I actually wrote this down in year 4, was a makeup artist, which is hilarious because I had no idea I would then end up becoming so in love with the whole art of makeup. That's what I first wanted to be, although I didn't know what that was at all. And then I kind of moved on to wanting, when I got older, I really liked the idea of psychology and helping people, and I thought about clinical psychology for a short while, and then I realised no, I still really want to work with children, and I really like the idea of doing educational psychology. I'm just going to use this concealer, by the way. It's a Bourjois Healthy Mix Concealer in 52. It's not one of my favourite concealers, but because I always tend to go for full coverage, but because I'm not really going anywhere today, I'm trying to like pull myself away from always wearing full coverage. I actually think this is quite a good dupe to the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. It does remind me of it a lot, so I'm just gonna apply a generous amount. I kind of decided at the end of year 1 and the start of year 2 that it probably wasn't for me because you have to do a PhD and you have to basically leave university, become a psychologist assistant and get experience and keep up to date with all the literature and the research, and then do a PhD. And then obviously after all that, then you can kind of start earning, and you do earn really well as an educational psychologist, but it's very competitive. And for me, I just thought, nah, I think I'd rather just go back to my original passion, which is teaching. And then the door's always open. That's the nice thing about doing a psychology degree. As long as it's BPS accredited, you can always go back and, you know, use your degree and top up your qualification. That's something that I would consider in the future for sure. Aisha's second question is, what is your favourite food and why? I have to say, the first thing that comes to mind when I think about that question is definitely my mum's lasagna. She makes lasagna really, really well, and whenever she makes it, I always want seconds because it's the most delicious thing ever. I'm going to go in with my Marc Jacobs. This is the Duo in Mirage Filter. I've actually reviewed this and put a dupe up on my blog as well, but I've actually run out of my dupe. I've completely hit pan, so I'm using up the Marc Jacobs version instead, and I'm applying this with a Morphe E8 brush. She also says, what's your favourite film? I really am not a film kind of person. I definitely spend more time watching series, so I don't have a favourite film. Who are your favourite bloggers and why? That's a hard one, Aisha. That is a hard one. What I'm going to do is link below some blogs in the description bar of this video so you guys can check out some amazing bloggers. I've been blogging for 4.5 years now, so I've definitely come across some amazing bloggers, and yeah, I'll link them all below. I am just going to lightly bake with my Kat Von D loose setting powder and using the same beauty blender. I think that baking is the key to getting the most flawless under eye that you can. Sahibam, I probably butchered that name so badly, I'm sorry. She said, how do you prep for NQT year? I think it really just depends on what year group you have, because if you've trained in the year group that you have, it's not too difficult to prep for it because you have a really good idea of what to expect. But definitely if you're going to a new school, it's a good idea to go and meet the team that you're going to be with and talk to the head of year, because they'll be able to tell you like the topics and things like that in the summertime. And then it's just nice to kind of have a read over what you're going to be teaching. I actually used OneNote when I was training, so I used to use my laptop more than take notes by hand, and OneNote is fantastic. If you have Microsoft Word, you should have OneNote as well. Basically it's just like an online notebook, and every single training session that I had, I documented it on OneNote, and it's a really easy way to just literally flick through the notebook on your laptop or your iPad or whatever and read over notes. And I had one page which I called top tips for NQT year, which is what I picked up from when like certain trainers would say, you know, when you've got your own class, this is what you should remember. And so I literally kept all those top tips together and I went over them. And I also went on to Twinkle and I printed out the NQT checklists and top tips for NQTs and things like that, because that's all there to help you and you might as well use it. So that definitely helped me to prepare. I also got this book called How to Be an Outstanding Primary School Teacher by David Dunn, and I would recommend it. See, I've messed up my eyebrows. Hang on, it's because I'm talking. Can't do my eyebrows and talk at the same time. So I've done my base now, and because my skin is on the drier side at the moment, I am going to go in with some rose water at this point. I'm going to be using the Tartelette in Bloom palette for the neutral shades, and then the brand new Certify palette. I love the brand Certify. Aisha's amazing, and look what she's created. It's so beautiful. I will just actually zoom you guys in. It's essentially got every single colour of the rainbow in here, and I don't tend to buy palettes very often anymore because I do have my own Makeup Uke and Anastasia Beverly Hills collection, which I love, and I spent a lot of time and money on making that. But this just stood out to me and I had to try it out, so I'm going to be using this palette. So she also asked what the NQT year consists of and how is it different to the Pgce year. I'm using this Zoeva 227 Luxe Definer. I don't always use an eyeshadow primer, so what I'm going to do is just pop some concealer, a little bit of concealer on the eyelids. This is from the Soap & Glory Trio. I only like to use a very small amount. I'm just setting that with the white powder that comes in the Trio because that will stop any creasing from happening. So the NQT year is basically your first year with your own class, and you have the exact same responsibilities of a regular class teacher, but you have a little bit more time to yourself. You have a little bit more PPA time. So basically most schools, not every school, but most schools will give you the whole Wednesday as your NQT day. And that is really, really helpful because especially if you're in a school where there's more than one NQT, you guys can have that time to come together and discuss the week and how it's going, and that support is so important. But also every single teacher does get PPA time anyway, which is time for planning and marking during the school day. But you normally only get about 2 hours, I believe, and as an NQT you get more time. In every other way, you're still a class teacher, you still have responsibility for the children in your class, still doing assessments with them, you're still doing all the teaching, and it depends on how your school does planning. But yeah, it's pretty much not that different. This is the Morphe M431, and I'm going to take the shade Shrimp. She also asked how is it different to the Pgce. It's different in so many ways. I mean, when you're doing the Pgce, you basically have a class that you're sharing with your mentor, and this is like when you're doing your NQT, you have your very, very own class, so you have a lot more responsibility. But the nice thing about it is that as soon as you walk into that classroom, those children see you as their teacher. Obviously, when you're training, you're seen as a student or a trainee teacher. In the school I trained in, it had my name on it and it had student on the door. And so when I walked in, the children in the class naturally saw me as a student because that's what I was. But they also saw me develop hugely in confidence from this really sort of quiet person who sat in the back of the room and was observing most of the time to towards the end of the year teaching 80% of the time. They see you transition, whereas when you have your own class, you're the class teacher from day one. And also any ideas that you've picked up on training and any ideas that you picked up from other teachers, you can implement it into your classroom and you can have your own sort of set of rules alongside the school rules. And I love that. I absolutely really enjoy that. I'm going back in with Smarty Pants and just putting it back into my crease to make it a bit more brown. I am loving the vibrancy of the red shrimp shade though from the Certified palette. Mariam Khan says, do you have any tips and tricks on time management and working on dissertation for final year at uni? I'm starting my placement 5 days as well as doing my disso and having a part-time job during weekends, so I'm kind of panicking at the moment. Oh, Mariam, I feel your pain. Honestly, I am the worst person to ask for time management tricks and tips because I was horrendous at university. I was awful in A-levels, I was awful in university. It's only really like in my training year where I kind of got a bit better at it, but I'm not the best at time management at all. What I would say is you need to be really, really strict with yourself and first of all, make to-do lists and like set 3 to 4 things that you must get done within that day and make them your priority. And then you have to kind of have a look at what distracts you and what sort of sets you back. We've actually recently been to a work-life balance training session and she basically gave us a timetable and said, I want you to track your time for 2 weeks and see what you're doing in your time. When are you doing marking? When are you thinking that you're doing planning but actually you're ending up watching EastEnders? You have to look at what you're actually doing and then decide, right, well, this time is just for my dissertation and then this time I'm going to catch up on my favourite show and also scroll through Instagram, for example, or whatever you like to do in your spare time. But because you have such a full-on schedule, that does sound like a lot, 5 days a week, and you're also working, mashallah, inshallah, you'll be fine. But the time that you do have, you have to be really, really disciplined with yourself. The dissertation process can feel absolutely horrendous because it can feel like it's just never going to end and there's like no end goal in sight, but there is. And when you get to that end goal, you will be so happy and so proud of yourself because you managed to prioritize. I'm really sorry, I didn't realize my camera stopped recording, but I basically took the shade Firecracker and just popped it all over the lid. I find bullet journaling really, really helpful in that sense. It does take a bit of time to get used to, but I would look into that as well because that helps you to set really achievable goals and tasks and go by that thing of having 3 main goals. I'm just going to take some more of Shrimp on that same brush and just go back into the inner and outer corners. Writing my dissertation was one of the most stressful times of my life, like it really, really was. Mainly you have to kind of be on your own back and be strict with yourself and say, no, look, I need to do this today and I need to get it done. And just be strict with yourself because I promise you, Mariam, like once you get to that end point where you finish your dissertation, you've handed it in, you will feel so proud of yourself. And when you get your grade, especially, like I got a first in my dissertation. I didn't get a first overall, but I got a first in my dissertation, and I cried because I'd worked so hard on it, and I just felt like, you know, justice was served. But it took a lot. It really took a lot. I've taken some of dusk on my lower lash line already, and I'm just going to take a little bit of shrimp on my lower lash line. Neelim Y asks, how are you finding teaching year 6? I'm really enjoying it, and I think it's because I trained in year 6, so coming into the year group where I trained in and I'm really familiar with, it wasn't as challenging. Obviously, like the year group that you trained in, if you can get that as your first job, it can be really helpful, unless you trained in a year group and you decided, I don't really want to be doing this year group anymore. Obviously that's a different story, but yeah, I'm really enjoying teaching year 6. I really am. Any behaviour management strategies that are working really well for you? For me, I just love our school's behaviour management policy, and I use it. There's a little bit of fallout there. I use it really well. My school is a restorative school, so they really talk about, you know, when something goes wrong or when a child's misbehaving, that we have to give them an opportunity to think about what they did and also to talk about it with them. And I love that. I don't know if it's a psychologist in me, but I think it's so important for anyone when something hasn't gone well, for them to be able to talk it out and discuss it. Or positive praise, and I like to praise children on their effort, especially because you just see them sitting up a bit smarter and like really trying harder when they know that you've noticed their effort, rather than consistently praising children who just do well naturally. So I have a prize box in my classroom, and I have table points, and that works really well. Getting them to work together to try and earn those points, and they have to get to 50 points, and then once they do get to that, they can get a prize out the prize box. And just like 2 weeks ago, I opened the prize box for the first time, and it was a magical moment in my classroom. They loved it. They really found it really exciting to get a prize out, and I love seeing them be so excited for the prizes, but also they'd really earned it, so it was a really nice way for them to have what they deserved. Yeah, sorry if I didn't really answer the behaviour management techniques very well, but I think just honestly talking to the children, because usually when a child's misbehaving, there's a deeper reason behind it. Sometimes there's not, but sometimes there really is, and it's nice to just sit down and have a chat about it, and then tell them how their actions are impacting the rest of the class, and ultimately how their actions are impacting their learning. Now, I do realise that there's only a certain age that you can actually do that with, and obviously like in year 2, for example, they're not really going to have the best understanding of that, but I still think that it's worth having a go at explaining it to them and talking about it with them, because children understand and know a lot more than we sometimes give them credit for. Just being honest with them, I think children appreciate honesty as much as adults appreciate honesty. Just being honest with them and just saying, like, for example, like within my own class, I've had conversations where I've said, you know, I know that you can do so much better, and I know that you've got the potential to be an absolute superstar, but right now your behaviour is just not showing me that, you know. And it's a tone that you use with them as well. If you use like a sort of more encouraging but quite firm and fair tone, they will just respect you and take you more seriously than if you're just telling them off and being like, oh, why do you keep doing this? That's another thing. In our school, we don't ask why. We do not ask why. That's a rule that I find it quite hard to get my head around at first. I was like, well, that's just your natural instinct to be like, why were you throwing the paper across the room? But actually, now that I've trained myself to do that, it makes sense, because what are they going to answer for why? They're just going to say, well, because I felt like it, or because I was bored. But instead of saying why, you say, what impact did it have on your learning by throwing that piece of paper across the room? And then, you know, you just see them kind of think, well, basically, I didn't end up learning very much there. And, you know, then there's ways to talk about it if you don't ask why. But if you ask why, they're just going to be like, because I felt like it. So I would say like be really careful and think carefully about what you're also asking them, because that's a huge part of that sort of the reflective process. Neelam also asked, what are your plans for teaching abroad? So I kind of have spoken about this before. on Snapchat that inshallah I would like to teach abroad. I don't have any concrete plans at the moment, but maybe in 2 years or so, inshallah, I'd like to move to the Middle East and teach abroad there. I don't know what my living circumstances are going to be. I don't know, what my personal circumstances are going to be by that time. But yeah, I would really, really like to do that. It's been a dream of mine for ages to go abroad and to just experience a different culture, experience living in a different culture before I have my own children, inshallah. And also, teachers just get paid better abroad, let's just be honest, they just do. I don't have any really concrete plans, to be honest with you. I think I would like to go to either Qatar or Kuwait, probably not Dubai because I find it to be a bit too touristy, honestly, but yeah, somewhere hopefully where they will be respectful of British teachers, and also where they'll be respectful of hijab wearing teachers, because I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter, but there was a teacher who had applied to work in, I can't remember which country it was, and they said, we would be happy to accept your application if you would be happy to take your hijab off. And this was in a Muslim country, and reading that kind of made my heart sink, because I was like, what? You don't move to a Muslim country and expect to be asked to take your hijab off. And their response was that our parents prefer British teachers who look like British teachers, but I just think that's ridiculous. I mean, I am very British. I was born in Britain, I am British, and I'm also a Muslim and I'm Pakistani as well, and I'm not going to be changing the way I dress or what I believe for the sake of my job. I'm just not going to do that. So yeah, basically in a very accepting school, inshallah. The next question was, how was your first parents' evening? Oh my gosh, I can't even explain to you how terrified I was about parents' evening. By the way, I'm just taking Laguna, and I do like to apply my bronzer without a hijab on, so I'm going to try and apply it like this. But yeah, I was so nervous about parents' evening. I really was. But alhamdulillah, it was absolutely fine. It was 10 minutes with most of the parents, and it was 10 minutes to just talk about, oh yeah, I get bronzer all over your hijab. That's great. It was 10 minutes to just talk about how the children have settled into year 6. It was so nice to actually meet the parents, because when you're in year 6, a lot of the children are walking home by themselves, or they are picking up their own siblings who are younger in the school and then going home. So I hadn't actually met a lot of the parents until parents' evening. It was really nice to meet them, and it was also really lovely to hear their feedback and how their children are finding year 6. And it was very comforting to hear a lot of them say my son is loving this year so far, or my daughter is coming home smiling every day. That just gave me such a sense of reassurance that we're on the same page and it's going well. So yeah, I definitely was very, very nervous about it, but I had nothing to be nervous about. Alhamdulillah, it was fine. And she also asked, how are you maintaining the workload balance? Questions from a fellow NQT. I have to say, it's been so lovely to speak to my fellow NQTs. It really has, because it's just so reassuring to just talk to people who are in the exact same boat as you and who are going through the same sort of things as you as well. Honestly, I sometimes feel like I've maintained it really well and everything's going fine, because I am just making that time for myself and for my friends and family. I think I said in my last video that you kind of just have to make the time. So every single Saturday, I don't do any work for school at all. And then I try and spend one evening a week not thinking about school at all as well. That's a bit more tricky. But I have to say that the last sort of 2 weeks of the last half term were really stressful, because it was assessment week as well. We had assessments over 2 weeks. It just felt like it was a never ending pile of papers to mark, and we had to have our data in as well by the last Friday, and it did feel stressful. And yeah, it's kind of one of those things where you just have to start learning how to get through it, and just the more you do it, the easier it will become in that sense. Because we actually just had work-life balance training, and I think one of the things that I took away from that, essentially you have to offload. You definitely do have to offload, but you have to kind of figure out a way that you do it where it's not continuous and does not go on, and it doesn't make you feel really drained just by thinking about it. And as much as possible, try and only sort of fret or worry or think about school when you're in school, and then try and keep your home life for your home. That's really difficult to do, I know it is, but I feel like if I try and do that, that's gonna help a little bit. I mean, I'll keep you guys updated on how that goes. Neelam says, this is the final questions. Also, what's your makeup routine for work? Part of me wants to put makeup on before I leave, but the other part wants to use that time to stay in bed longer. It really depends on the day, but I'm definitely one of those people where if I just spend that 5-10 minutes in the morning just getting rid of my dark circles is my main thing. That's what I always have to do. And then maybe putting a bit of blusher on, sometimes putting on some tinted moisturiser and some lipstick and my eyeliner. Then I'm good to go and I'm ready to face the day. It just depends on what makes you feel ready to face the day. Like, some people can't go without their coffee in the morning. Everyone has their own thing. For me, it just makes me feel like today's a new day and I'm ready to face the day with a smile. And don't get me wrong though, sometimes I've just looked horrendous. Do whatever makes you happy and what makes you feel comfortable. In terms of like a whole full face of makeup on a daily basis, no. Like, if I do have an extra 5 minutes, I generally will just use that to just, I'll put a little bit more blush on today or add a bit of highlight today. Which reminds me, I do need to do my highlighter. I'm gonna go in with my Fenty highlighter. I'm using the Morphe MB23 brush, which is actually supposed to be an eyeshadow brush, but it works really well for highlighter. And I'm just gonna use the most subtle shade. This brush is so good for highlight, oh my gosh. By the way, I just reviewed all my Morphe eyeshadow brushes and I said like, oh, I wouldn't buy this brush again, it's not great for the eyes, but hello, it's a great highlighter brush. I'm just going to change my lip colour as well. I'm going to put on Colourpop's Wild Nothing, which is pretty dark, but you know what, it's autumn, so why not? Something I've noticed since I started filming is the camera always washes colours out. This is like a deep burgundy purple, and on the camera it's coming out like a gorgeous mauve shade. It kind of like matches my hoodie. I wish it was the colour that it shows in the camera, but it's not. It's a lot darker. And what I just wanted to show you guys is what I've been loving wearing recently, even to school as well, is the Kiko Velvet Touch Creamy Blush Stick. This is in the shade 7. Before, when I first got this, I used to like plonk it onto my face and it would just move any foundation or anything I've got underneath. And now what I've realised is that it works really, really well with a small stippling brush. This is from e.l.f. So I literally just use a brush on top and then I'll just pop it onto the apples of my cheeks. Again, it works better when you're not wearing the hijab to apply makeup with. Okay, and this is like my pretty glammed up autumn makeup. The only thing I'm really missing is a pair of lashes, and then this would be like a super glam look. But I have not got the hang of wearing lashes really confidently yet, and so I will not be wearing them. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this video. It's already long enough, so I'm really not going to ramble on too much, but if you did enjoy it, give it a thumbs up. The hoodie I'm wearing is from Primark, and should have already posted a Primark haul before this one goes up. And yeah, and then by the time this goes up, I will be well into my second half term of being an NQT. I'm loving it, honestly, alhamdulillah. I'm really, really, really loving it at the moment. It has its challenges for sure, but I feel like once you've got a job where you're excited to go into work and you're excited to start a new day, that's when you know you're in the right job. And alhamdulillah, right now, that's definitely me. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in my next one. Bye.